Davis.
Here.
John Frida.
Here.
John Landers.
Here.
Frank Zetz.
Good evening. On behalf of the board, we welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. Boardman is a community with high passion. We love our students, and we are fortunate to have wonderful families, and we have been blessed by community support. As long as I've been a board member, when our students need something, when our Spartans' education is at stake, our community responds. We are very fortunate. We realize many of you are here to talk about the 20-day mask mandate policy. We receive phone calls and emails on both sides, and we realize passion is involved here. Mask policy has become a national debate that's proved very divisive, but that unfortunately has no clear answer that works for everyone. It has not been solved across the nation, and we will not solve it here tonight. Tonight, we are all here to listen. For those wishing to make public comment, participants will be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and the connection to Boardman schools. Out of respect to our Boardman families and residents, those with Boardman addresses will be called to speak first. Our policy for public participation allows for each participant to be limited to 5 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Please be reminded that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Board members generally do not provide a response to questions during public participation. Please know we are listening. And as I said before, no action will be taken on the mask policy tonight. Also, please be considerate of all speakers. Respect is crucial to productive communication. We know that these last several years have been exhausting. Our main goal is to educate our students safely. Finding a solution that works for every family may not be possible, but it is a worthy pursuit. We have to work for a solution that will keep our kids healthy and keep our doors open for in-person learning. Thank you. Are these first to last? This gentleman is first? Okay. So there's a Dwight McMurray. Will you please come forward? And are you timed at 5 minutes, or would you like?
I will need 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need you to state your name,
Dwight McMurray.
and are you representing an organization?
No.
Okay, and your address is?
Bishop Woods Court.
Okay. You may proceed.
Good evening. I'd like to first thank the Boardman School Board and Superintendent Saxon, as well as all the Boardman residents, parents, and students that took time out of their busy schedules tonight to sit down together and discuss a very important topic we're also passionate about at this emergency meeting. We ask that all parents and faculty conduct themselves as adults tonight and address this topic with poise and professionalism. I'd like to thank the school board as well as Mr. Saxon for the way they took precautions last year to protect our faculty and children when so little was known about this pandemic. My name is Dwight McMurray, and I've been a Boardman resident for the entire 37 years of my life. I'm a local business owner and look forward to our 2 children coming up through the Boardman schools as myself and my wife have in the past. Boardman is a great school district as it has a close-knit community behind it. With that being said, the forced mandate for our children in the Boardman schools has upset an overwhelming amount of parents, students, and faculty, which hundreds have reached out to myself as well as a few others after we started our discussions. Originally, everyone understood that there was very little unknown about this virus and very little information about what damage it would do to the human body or death. Since then, within the last 18 months, we've gathered an exorbitant amount of information pertaining specifically to the age groups of 5 to 18 years of age. The numbers directly from the CDC do not lie. COVID deaths in the last 20 months are 313. Of these 313 children, ages 5 through 18, school age, the CDC reports that not one of these children were healthy, active children. Tonight we will show that there is such an immensely small risk of damage, sickness, or even death to healthy children ages 5 through 18. And are requesting from the board and Mr. Saxon to change the mandate to optional, with the decision lying between each individual child, parent, and his or her physician. Obviously, no one within this building would ever wish or long for any child to come within danger within this township, and especially in our grade schools. With that being said, we ask the board, where is the risk for healthy, active children? Why are they being forced to put masks on that directly say on the box, will not protect them from COVID? Why are they being forced to wear G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man, and Princess masks made by Martha on Facebook when this escaped a level 4 biohazard lab? A microscopic sample of COVID is over 180 times smaller than one piece of fine beach sand. 180 times smaller. These masks are not effective. The CDC states that cotton masks are only good for 2 hours at most. After this, they should be discarded and changed. The masks become a petri dish, which could easily cause pneumonia, in which case they are over 3 times as likely to die from pneumonia. Masks cause dizziness, headaches, shortness of breath, anxiety, increased bacteria growth, and hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen. Is it child abuse to force children to sit in a room and breathe dirty air from a dirty mask in 80+ degree weather in schools that we have no AC in, where there is no risk to their health? Children pull their masks down to sneeze and cough as well. Do you know how far a cough travels? Per the CDC, a cough travels 13 to 19 feet. The children pull the mask down and cough. A sneeze travels 23 to 27 feet. They also pull their mask down to sneeze. If there's such a huge risk to our children, why haven't the schools installed air scrubbers? We use them on commercial jobs as well as hospitals while under construction. Are the kids' lives and health important but not that important? What are the emergency money used last year for? If there are so many at-risk children within our school system, why hasn't there been accommodations for the at-risk kids and faculty? Wouldn't they be and feel safer in a room with other people at risk if they are more aware of the risks? Shouldn't you guys be accommodating the faculty that have autoimmune disease, possible lung cancer, and compromised immune systems? Mr. Saxon, you stated in your email to numerous people here tonight that one of the 3 deciding factors that you used to decide to force the mask mandate was because there were 3 positive COVID cases from teachers within the last week. If the teachers were following the proper CDC protocol, how would they test positive? Teachers are the only ones within the classroom that are at risk. If masks work so well, why do the children have to wear a mask if the teachers are at risk? Sorry, go ahead.
You're fine.
Okay, can I finish this? I just have one more paragraph. Not to sound insensitive, but if masks work and they have had their immunization, why would your teachers be at risk at all? The CDC quotes that children ages 0 to 17 have a 99.99% survivability rate if they contract the virus. 99.99%. Thank you.
Brandon Bird, will you please step forward?
Hello, my name is Brandon Berg, 144 Creston Drive. I have 3 boys in Boardman schools. If you want to keep time. I would like to thank Mr. Saxton and Ms. Davis for organizing a non-scheduled school board meeting at the request of concerned parents and community members that you see here tonight. I've lost my mother-in-law. 2 grandparents and a close family member to COVID in the last year and a half. I have parents who are COVID survivors. I'm not anti-mask, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm for the right solution, for the right problem. What's the problem? It was announced Friday, on August 20th, that the Boardman schools will be making masks mandatory for all. Why? Because cases are on the rise and 3 teachers are COVID positive. It was said that we need to protect our kids from COVID-19. The only problem here is that there's no threat of COVID-19 that we need to protect our kids from, statistically speaking. The numbers don't lie. According to the Center for Disease Control, COVID-19 contributed to 313 children's deaths between the ages of 5 and 18 from January 1st, 2020 to August 21, 2021 in the entire U.S. Similar numbers as the flu in 2019. Out of that number, 313 children, 0 were classified as healthy school children. Doctors from Stanford released a new study called Infection Fatality Rate Among COVID and Community Dwelling Populations with emphasis on the elderly. It stated that the infection survival rate for those 0 to 19 years old is 99.9973%. The survival rate for those over 70 is 94.5%. According to these numbers, we should be more afraid of the flu. Again, I ask, what's the problem we're trying to solve with virtually no statistical risk to our students? The International Research Journal Public Health, Damien Guerra, in his paper on mask mandates and use of efficacy for COVID-19 containment in the U.S. concludes that mask mandates were not associated with lower total cases or lower maximum growth rates. So we're trying to protect students from a virus that has a survivability rate of 99.9973% with a mask that does nothing to keep the spread of COVID contained. Again, what problem are we trying to solve? Why is any burden being placed upon healthy school children who are not at risk? Why is any burden being placed upon healthy teachers who are not at risk? What is being accomplished by forcing healthy school children to wear masks? I'm all for protecting those who actually are at risk if you can identify who they are. Once they're identified, we can work for the right solutions with parents with those who are at risk. Let's not assume everyone is at risk, since our beloved CDC says our kids are not. The fact is that we all know more this time of year than last year. Parents and teachers can make wise personal decisions for their kids regarding COVID. They've been doing so. Forcing the wrong solution on our students could actually be harming them. We've seen increased anxiety, increased depression, suicidal ideation, learning disorders. CDC's on February 2021 double mask study reported masking may impede breathing, which can trigger other problems like acute anxiety in susceptible individuals. These harms are even more likely to occur in children, particularly smaller children. Even if the mask could help just a little, the moment they are wet, any amount of saturation, they don't function after 20 minutes, according to Professor Yvonne Kozar, Department of Infectious Disease at the University of Sydney. As soon as the mask becomes saturated with moisture from your breath, they stop doing their job and pass on droplets. Dr. Bryson, who's Europe's leading neurotoxicology, environmental medicine, neuroregenerational, and neuroplasties, I don't know half of the word, but I know they're smart. He's gone on record stating the following: the rebreathing of our exhaled air without a doubt creates oxygen deficiency and a flooding of carbon dioxide. We know the human brain is very sensitive to oxygen deprivation. The neurons in our hippocampus can't survive more than 3 minutes without an adequate supply of oxygen. Oxygen deprivation can cause metabolic changes, and these changes can affect cognitive functioning. All this to say, students experience headaches, drowsiness, dizziness, and reduced ability to concentrate. Are we really helping those at risk, or are we just helping kids get sicker? Given that there is no statistical risk of harm to our kids shown by the CDC's own numbers, I would ask that you restore parents and teachers' rights to make their own medical decisions regarding their health and safety. A choice that should be between them and their doctor. Let us then work together to truly help those who are at risk. I yield back.
everyone. My name is Cindy Furback, retired Boardman High School principal. I'm here this evening, I'm sorry.
Just your address.
Oh,
Sorry.
6146 West Boulevard.
Thank you.
I'm here this evening to speak as a community member with a unique perspective of having been the principal during the first and second year of COVID protocols. First of all, I feel it's very important for us to acknowledge where we all agree. Because even in the midst of the most passionate controversy, there is always a place that we can stand together, a place where we can be united. Here's where I think we all agree. We want our kids and our students in school, in person, with as normal of a school year as is possible. We want concerts and sports and plays and pep assemblies and homecoming and sweethearts and prom and all of the sacred, traditional senior activities. The second thing I think we all agree on is that we don't want our students to be remote. We know that that did not work for all of our kids. Where we disagree is how to get there. Let's talk about what last year was like from the inside. The months of September through January were the months of continual positive cases and quarantining. Quarantining that we as administrators had to learn how to do because the health departments could not keep up with the numbers. When a positive case was reported to us, we would collect the seating charts for the student schedule. We would check the spacing between the seats in all of the classes and make a list of any student who was within the health department's designated circle of exposure. That first step would generate a list of anywhere from 10 to 20 student names for each positive case. Some days we had 10 or 11 positive cases to do contact tracing for. Next, we would call these students down one at a time and explain to them that they were being quarantined, its duration, and their limitations. Now, the stereotypical version of teenagers is that they hate school, right? Well, when you're quarantining a student, you are giving them no gift. One after the other, students would be crushed when they were told they had to quarantine. Many of them broke down and cried right there in the office. Next came the equally difficult step of calling parents to tell them the same thing we just told the student. Again, parents were crushed. Many of them yelled, screamed, raged, and yes, some of them cried too. Please understand that a licensed administrator has no choice but to follow the quarantining protocols as established by the local health department. It doesn't matter if it's not our opinion or is our opinion or we believe it or don't. So let's talk about this school year. As of right now, if students are wearing masks, there will be no quarantining required for positive cases. That is the rule as of right now. It doesn't matter if I agree with that rule. It doesn't matter if you agree with that rule. That is simply the rule for right now. The only time school will need to quarantine will be for the limited times that a mask cannot be worn, such as lunch or perhaps a PE class. If your child is wearing a mask, your child will not be quarantined, period. Do the educators like the masks? Absolutely not. We just know what needs to be done right now to open and keep open our schools. Let me tell you, there are many times last year when I felt defeated, like I was standing on the deck of a sinking ship, quarantining hundreds of students and dozens of staff. Those numbers are not exaggerations. We would juggle teacher coverages to make sure we had adults in classes to keep the doors open. Many times, I went over to Mr. Saxton's office and I tossed myself into a seat and I told him I didn't think we could keep the building open any longer. And every time, and there were many times, he listened, he asked insightful questions, he offered support, he even offered to teach classes himself to keep the building open because that was his goal, because that was what was best for our kids and our school family. Every time our conversation ended with Mr. Saxton telling me to go home, get a good night's sleep, and come back tomorrow, and tell him if we needed to shut the building down for a few weeks, and he would support that. And every time I did what he said, I went home, I slept, and I came back. And each time Mr. Saxton and I and the administrative team figured out a way to keep the doors open because that was our #1 priority. Last year, we all wore masks. It wasn't a big deal. Students, it turns out, want to be in school. It turns out they're less concerned with politics, controversy, and slippery slopes. They just want to have school and a normal school year. Simply put, if the masks are not mandated, it is very likely that hundreds of students will be quarantined over and over and over throughout the year. And when the staff becomes involved in that necessity of quarantine, the school will likely shut down. It is not ideal to wear a mask, but it is what is required of us right now if we want to keep our kids in school in person during what is likely to be an even more challenging year than last year, as COVID has turned its ugly head at our young people. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Just because we disagree with the mask mandate doesn't mean that we can't support the schools. Let's try to work together as a school family and help each other get through this. We can all help. Use all of this energy to find out how we can support the schools to keep the doors open. Can you sub? Can you donate? Can you give treats to the kids to bring their spirits up? Can you reach out to teachers, administrators, and yes, to the superintendent, who is a good person who cares deeply? We are all on the same team, and we need to work together to keep the doors of the schools open and give our kids some consistency and stability in the midst of what we all know can be a very scary world. Thank you.
Doug Reed, will you please come forward?
Doug Reed, 140 Forest Garden. I have 4 kids in the school district, well, one in preschool, soon to be in the school district. This is my first board meeting. All right, there we go. I won't touch it again. This is my first board meeting, which is super exciting. Thank you for calling this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Saxton and board. I appreciate that. Now, I understand as a local pastor, I have a vantage point that a lot of people here don't. This is a difficult situation that none of us as leaders asked for. None of us wanted this. We had never led through a pandemic. We wrestled on our leadership team. Should we close? Should we not close? We wrestled, do we come back open? What do we do when we open? We talked about our insurance company and our attorney and what does it mean for liabilities? Can we have kids stuff? Can we open our cafe? No one wants to make the wrong decision as a leader. And so we looked at every vantage point. And I believe that all of us are trying to work towards the right decision. I don't think anybody here is going, how do we make a bad decision? Ultimately, our conclusion was that we came to at our church was that COVID is very real. People get very, very sick from it. My wife and I both had it. I watched my 90-year-old grandfather fight through it. It's a very real thing. But ultimately, the conclusion we came to at our church is we left it up to the people to mitigate their own risk. We told them that they could stay home and watch online, or they could come and they could be involved in a normal service. We told them that they could wear a mask, or that they didn't have to. They could sit separately, or they could sit with friends. They could have their kids in service with them, or they could put their kids in programs. They could hug and shake hands, or not. Choice was a powerful thing. It worked well for our church. I have a lot of Spartan families that I call Bridge of Hope home. And what we've heard, and what I've heard repeatedly from many parents, is they just want the ability to make the choice. They want the ability to look at the facts as it pertains to their family. And I understand you guys are looking at multiple buildings, you're looking at hundreds of faculty and thousands of students. I understand that this picture for you is a little bit bigger. And I'm sure that there's been some frustration. I'm sure you've gotten some fun emails and phone calls. But the truth is, and there have been facts stated, and I don't need to repeat them to you, but I don't believe that for our children, there's 75 million school-aged children in America, and we've only lost 400 of them. And I don't say only because those 400 don't matter. I'm saying statistically, we never did anything with the flu. More kids die from burns and accidents and so many other things, and we don't make them wear helmets to school. So I think it's important for us to remember. When I look at what the rest of the world is doing, I know America is very divided on this. But if you look, there are entire European nations from the UK to the Netherlands to Italy to all of Scandinavia that have said, and there are health officials with alphabet soup after their name that are real smart people, have all said it's more of a detriment for our kids, particularly our young kids, to go to school with a mask on. It's going to be psychologically damaging. It's going to slow their education, and COVID is not a risk for them. So are those whole countries wrong? Are their health administrations wrong? I do understand that you have people that are issuing orders to you and giving you rules. I get that. But I believe with all my heart that our job as leaders are to present people with the best options, the best advantages. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so our job here as a school board, I believe, is to give the parents the best options and then move out of the way and let parents do what's best between them, their doctor, and what they feel is best. And so I really would encourage you to go back to an optional mandate. I think it's healthy for our kids. My kids are little. You know how hard it is for a kindergartner to learn how to enunciate words when they can't see their teacher's face? I have a second grader who's working real hard to learn how to read. And we've had to do a lot of work at home like so many parents did. But when he was in school, he couldn't see his teacher's face. And so there's certain syllables, certain things that don't quite come out the right way. And so there's things that those kids need. My kindergartner needs to be able to socialize and squish some dirt in his hands and be around other kids and be able to see their faces. They're learning social cues and they don't have that, especially for our young kids. So I really appreciate your time and thank you for this meeting. And I hope that we go back to an optional mandate.
Anthony Buckman, will you please come forward?
I want to thank the board and the superintendent for opening the doors for us to come out and allow our voices to be heard.
My name's Anthony Bookman, 4013 Shelby Road. I'm a graduate of Boardman High School in '95 and also a resident as right now. I have some things I would like to share. Let me start by saying I am a parent, a resident of Boardman, and a concerned voter. I am concerned that some public servants may have lost sight of what their job is. Among other things, serving the public should mean listening to what we have to say. Due to the lack of transparency and clear communication in this situation by the school board and superintendent, we, the members of the community, have asked for this meeting, and again, I thank you. In America, we have a basic fundamental right. One right, which is to choose what's best for our children. The parent or guardian is the ultimate authority, not any other person, school district, or entity. Did you communicate with the parents of the students of Boardman schools while making this decision? Unfortunately, they found out through their children. Based on your decision, who did you think you are protecting? It's not the children, because based on the numbers, which have already been said tonight, they are not at risk. I do not take this position lightly. Please don't misunderstand. This virus has taken an awful toll. I have lost loved ones. We have a confused population. We have differing medical opinions. Many of us don't know if there is an actual vaccine or not. We don't know if boosters are needed or when they are needed. We question the effectiveness of both. But my opinion addresses the freedoms of the individual and the fear of losing these freedoms. Now that we know there is minimal risk, how have you come to the conclusion that the school board has the authority to infringe on people's freedom or right to choose what's best for their family? You may not realize this, but Boardman schools, you are in the minority. You are one of a few schools that is in the area mandating masks with no proof that they are necessary. I ask again, who are you trying to protect? If masks are indeed mandated, what child will be wearing the required N95 mask? Probably not very many. The style and the gaiters win out with the children. Are they effective? Still, in respect to our right to choose, if any parent or guardian wants their child or children to wear a mask, they are perfectly within their right to do so. And we will protect those. We will protect it under that right. Same goes for anyone who chooses not to wear a mask or get vaccinated, for that matter. In conclusion, transparency, communication, and accountability are all very important and should be priorities for all elected officials and school administration. Not focusing on these priorities has caused similar issues and concerns with the school district in the past. My name is Anthony Bookman. I am running for Boardman School Board of Education this November 2nd. I would appreciate your support to begin and learn and make adjustments to the status quo that has been going on for far too long. I will make myself available after this meeting if anybody would like to talk and get to know me. Thank you.
McHenry, can you come forward?
Turn this off, see if that's off. Yeah, we're gonna, this is what, try now.
Joel McKendry, North Cadillac. I just want to say thank you again for listening to everybody. Obviously, this is it's been a very confusing year and a half. One thing that I found that was pretty interesting about this is everybody likes to compare it to the Spanish flu from 1918 to 1919, where they did the same thing with the masking, only to find out that the majority, the very vast majority of all those people that died from bacterial pneumonia. I mean, that even came from Dr. Fauci himself. And another thing that I found interesting about this whole pandemic that we're in, we heard about inflated numbers. Well, this is per CDC's numbers. They literally stated that 6% of all listed deaths are actually COVID. So 94% of all those deaths that were listed that probably scared every single person in this room are wrong. They died from something else, but they claimed it as COVID, only to find out that hospitals got a 20% bonus for claiming COVID. But that's not what this is about. This is about the kids. I have a child that is in 5th grade with the mask. I'm not gonna go through all the scientists. One of the scientists that I was following was Stephen Petty. He has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, a Master of Science in Chemical Engineering. He has an MBA. He was a senior research scientist, a senior research engineer. He's a certified industrial hygienist, certified safety professional. And what he talked about and what he found was, with COVID, it was all about the aerosols and droplets. That's what I want, if you guys have any time to look up the difference between aerosols and droplets. Masks will prevent the droplets. We get that, the spit and stuff. But what he found in his testing, which was done in, I think, February, that all the people that were mainly getting infected were from the aerosols, which their size is 0.3 to 0.5 microns. Now the droplets are 5 to 10 microns. So there's a huge significant difference. Those aerosols can stay in the air for multiple days. They don't just shoot and fly to the ground, they're in the air. Meaning anyone can walk through, cough, boom, 3-4 days later, it's still there, anyone can catch it. But the whole thing is I just keep going back to 99.8% of the people are surviving it. That is an amazing number, and we shouldn't be scared of it because it's pretty much comparable to the flu. And that's what I'm asking, like, if we're so scared of this doing all these things, taking our rights, what's best for our kids, why weren't you doing this with the flu when I was going to the school? Why don't you make me wear a mask during flu season? I don't understand that, and I think a lot of parents are confused. And the next step is, okay, if they're pushing these masks on kids, are you going to push a vaccine on these kids when they say it's okay for a child under 13 years old to take them? I'm just concerned about this because it seems like our rights as a parent are going away and they're in your hands. And as we've known, data has changed, positions have changed. In 1 year, I've heard the same person go back and forth at least 3-4 times. We can't get an honest answer. And who are we to trust? You have to question these people. Because you cannot, and that's what we were told too from the very beginning, is to question everything. That's what makes us an intelligent group of people. If we just listen, who are we listening to? And what is there? Do they have my best interest? Do they have these parents' best interest? I don't get it, and I just wish that we could all come to an agreement and just make this optional for the parents. Again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Frank Tondo.
How you doing? Frank Tondo, live at 4634 Simon Road. First of all, I would like to thank you for your time today, being a lifelong resident of Boardman as a child to my adulthood. I would like to set the record straight. While we are here to decide whether or not masks should be optional, allow me to speak on that. Masks are completely useless, I say even harmful to our children. We as a society have let the fears of this disease and disaster and possible death govern every feeling and action, to the point we are muzzling our children in a case of a possible infection. Forget that the virus is 99.9 survival rate. It is literally on the box of the mask, and the products will not protect against COVID virus. Yet, you have so far ignored that. People always say study or follow the science. Well, that's fine. Let's do a science lesson right now. Let's talk about hypercapnia and hypoxia. There is only one thing intended for our lungs is oxygen. Rich oxygen for our lungs and filters into the blood, which ultimately we have for nutrient-rich oxygenized blood. And that is the only purpose of the human lung, to receive oxygen. We know this because in instances when someone else is injected in our lungs, it is not good. For example, carbapenem from the paint smells is harmful if he inhales them. 9/11 workers cleaned up the aftermath and they had huge respiratory problems afterwards. If you smoke a cigarette, we know that's not good. So what we are doing today when we place the mask over our children's face, when they are sucking carbon dioxide or hypocapnia, which is the injection of carbon dioxide, that is not good. The University of Whitmer, a premier institute in Germany, did a 9-week study, found you put a mask over a child's face, not only is that the child sucking harmful carbon dioxide all day, there is a reservoir or well in the mask of additional carbon dioxide that the children will also have to breathe. In a nutshell, that child is forced to breathe in trapped waste as well. Worse yet, we are doing this to the kids by masking up our precious development years. So what is hypoxia, you ask? It is when you suck the waste into your bloodstream and you have low oxygen levels. Loss of nutrients and oxygen leads to disease, inflammation, and other factors that you can hinder that disable a children's development and functions much less than an adult. I know you don't want that for my child. You should not reconsider the keep the mask mandate. The school will assume the medical liability should a child have a respiratory illness down the road. That's the questions all parents should be answered. In the closing, I do not deny any parent the right to have a mask on their child if that's necessary. I'm advocating that my child has healthy lungs, immune system, respiratory system, as well to breathe oxygen, which is common sense. For tens of thousands of years, we breathe oxygen. Masks should be optional. Allow the children who want to breathe freely to show their faces and enjoy the precious development years without fear. Thank you.
Kim Benson.
Hi, I'm Kim Benson. I live on Green Bay Drive. I'm here tonight because I wanted to Saxton and the board for following the guidance of the health officials and having the masks be mandated in schools. I have 3 children currently in the Boardman schools, 2 that are vaccinated. My youngest is not able to receive the vaccine as of yet. I hope that we can all agree that keeping the kids in person learning is the best scenario for learning. I'm here tonight because yes, there are parents who disagree, but there are many Spartan families that are thankful, relieved, and believe their kids are safer learning in this environment because of the masks. Masks slow transmission and reduce quarantine times. In conclusion, I follow what my mom always told me. It's better to be safe than sorry.
I'm gonna do my best on this. Sarah. A.M. All right.
Hi, I'm Sarah Imsmeyer. Trenholm Road. I'm a parent. 313 kids in 18 months died of COVID, while 0 healthy school kids have died. Kids ages 0 to 19, according to the CDC, have a survival rate of 99.99815%. You send out videos saying you are keeping my kid masked to keep him safe. But the fact is, he is safe. He is safe to go to school without a mask, experience school, and be given an education. My husband and I have lived in Boardman for 11 years. We have 4 children who we intend to go through the Boardman school system. My oldest was in kindergarten during the original shutdown. He had an amazing teacher who was very supportive and helpful during the shutdown, but he struggled doing online learning. He struggled sitting in front of a computer to learn, to keep his attention and keep his focus on the screen. It was a daily battle between him and I to learn in that manner. When fall came around, I explained the options. To continue to do virtual learning or go to school, but it would look nothing like when he left. He would have dividers on his desk separating him from his friends, and he would have to wear a mask. Taking his input into consideration, he went to in-person learning. Every day he would come home asking when it would end, when the mask would stop. The mask gave him headaches, he got overheated, he couldn't concentrate, and he was distracted. When the video came out with the no mask mandate for school, he was elated. A huge burden lifted off his little shoulders. Then in a flip-flop decision, based on no evidence, no sound reason, and absolutely no explanation to the parents, masks were mandated again. He immediately asked to stay home and go virtual. A kid who excels inside the classroom, who loves being in person and being around his friends, willingly would ask us to stay home and try learning in a way that he struggled with. He would rather struggle to learn, struggle to keep up, than be forced to be in a mask. And he isn't the only kid that thinks this. So tell me, who are you protecting? Because it's not my son. The gold standard for medical research has always been randomized controlled trials. Yet the CDC has used observational studies to defend their stance. A RCT study by Larson et al. In New York researched washing hands versus washing hands and mask wearing. It shows significant results that hand hygiene group are less likely to develop any symptoms of upper respiratory infection at 42%, compared to those with a mask plus hand hygiene at 61%. The authors of the study wrote that masking may potentially increase infection risk, seeing that the virus may survive on the surface of the face mask, and a contaminated cloth mask may transfer pathogens from the mask to bare hands and wearer. Another RTC study by McIntyre looked at the effectiveness of cloth masks and surgical masks. The trial lab tested penetration rates of particles. Surgical masks were poor at preventing the penetration of particles, letting 44% through, while cloth masks were extremely poor, letting 97% through. So again, how's your mandate keeping my child safe? My daughter wore a mask last year throughout preschool. Her mask would be drenched and disgusting after 3 hours when I picked her up. A group of parents in Florida sent their students' masks to a university lab to be tested. These cloth masks were found to have trapped 11 different pathogens. Half the masks were contaminated with 1 or more strains of pneumonia causing bacteria, and 1/3 were contaminated with 1 or more strains of antibiotic-resistant bacterial pathogens. Moisture retention in cloth masks offer poor filtration and risk our kids to infection and self-contamination when kids touch a mask, then touch other surfaces, or touch their mask to take them off, and then touch the food that they eat. You are forcing healthy children who are not at risk for COVID to wear a mask and breathe in these germs. You are putting my child's health at risk in the name of protecting my child by forcing them to mask. The study shows students were more likely to get RSV, pneumonia, etc. from breathing in these germs than to get and spread COVID. Do you know how many kids die every year of RSV? According to the CDC, each year in the United States, there are 58,000 hospitalizations and 100 to 500 deaths of children. The CDC asserts in its own numbers that COVID is not much of a threat to healthy school children. More children under the age of 18 died of influenza during the 2018-19 moderate flu season that lasted 8 months than died of COVID-19. We are living in a time where social media and media in general is making this a fight of mask versus unmask, me versus you. We are all here today because we care about our children. We want the right to choose how to protect them. Is masking children really just about seeming to be doing something, even if it's ineffective or possibly harmful? If the possible harm outweighs the questionable benefit in such a low-risk group, then why are you mandating masks on my children? I respect teachers who choose to mask and parents who choose to mask. What I'm asking here tonight is my right as a parent to choose not to mask my child. A mask that is causing them to be at risk for getting sick rather than to protect them against something they're not at risk for. Again, you are protecting. Who are you protecting? Who are you speaking for? Because it's not my family. Thank you.
Rich Wyan.
Rick Wyan, Eagle Trace, Boardman, Ohio. I actually founded the Boardman, Ohio Parents Organization. It's going to be a group, hopefully, I can act as an intermediary between the two of you in some of these types of situations. I got to tell you, I actually have no emotional bias whatsoever. A lot of people seem passionate about this. I don't watch TV, I don't watch the news. I have no like, dislike, could care less, to be quite honest. However, when my son said he had to wear a mask, I'm in the consulting business. I'm a private contractor, so what do? I want to know what the risk is. I heard about this mask stuff last year, and I thought maybe the data had changed. I prepared a speech with the team that, everyone who's working together. I've already provided the data, and I asked them to all challenge it and try to find what they're saying is factually correct. It is irrefutable. Irrefutable. I want to let everyone resonate with that. It's irrefutable. Over 99% of Americans are going to go unaffected by COVID. That's the reality. So what I want to offer is only solutions, to be honest. We're not going to have enough time today. I'd like to email you guys a proposal for solutions. We can't get into all that today, obviously. It's going to take some planning. But the first thing we got to do is identify who's at risk. I'm not. And then you have to define when we talk. One of the arguments I would hear quite often is a risk of the transmission, cases, infections. It doesn't matter who's at risk of the big number of cases and infections and transmission. That translates into nothing. It still does not affect over 99% of the population. So it really calls into the question, if we're going to work towards a solution, which I know you guys want, that's what we want to do, is let's identify the at-risk group. That has to be first and foremost. We have to identify who is this at-risk group. And someone along the line, not you guys particularly, we have to identify at-risk for what? Because so far where it sets, they provided numbers, so I'm not going to repeat them, but they all are correct. We really have to identify, if you're going to come up with a solution to this, the problem. The problem is not whether masks work or not. People will argue that in circles, and I couldn't believe, and when I started the group, we got together, 30 or 40 of us in a room. I sat down. I've never been to a school board meeting. My son's a freshman. Go Spartans. And when I started it, so the first thing I did is I sat down with the group and I listened to them. So I asked, did I get a raise of hands? Does anyone know how many children died? I already knew this information going in. I already did my homework before I went to the meeting because I just wanted to see where people were at. Like I said, I don't really watch television. I don't do media. I don't do any of that stuff. So kind of a simple thing, just, and I couldn't believe it, not a single person knew. So all of this action is being taken. And this is important to note. Like I said, I did prepare a speech, but I'm just kind of going free here. Just, based on my business, I use my resources. I scraped all the emails off the website, contacted every single teacher, faculty, coach, everyone I could, bombarded them with surveys, got what I could as far as to get some answers. What I could not believe is that out of 300 people, and again, I'm not attacking anybody, let me be clear. I'm just talking collectively as a group. Because it's nobody's fault. I asked this group if they knew how many people died, nobody knew. Out of 300 teachers, nobody knew how many people died? Guys, we're being had. And it's not by you. Boardman has an opportunity here to do something very unique. You watch every other school board meeting and they're arguing about masks. Do they work? Do they don't work? Guys, that's a circular argument no one's gonna win. I don't know if they work. You have to know the environment, what kind of mask, you have to know all those factors. But what we can do is identify the real core issue here is we're saying a generalization that everybody's at risk. That is factually untrue. It's untrue. With that said, I'm going to work on some stuff I'm not going to present today of something that we could propose doing as far as, the public doesn't need to know, but you as a school, you're going to have to identify that at-risk group, but you can't join everybody together. And that is not segregation. I've heard that argument before. This is accommodation. If someone legitimately has a special immune disorder, guys, masking up ain't even safe for them. Masks, they probably do work to some degree. I'm not going to challenge that. That's not the answer, though. You know what I mean? If someone is legitimately immune compromised and they're in this school, or let's say their mother's at home and they're sick, those parents need to notify that, you guys of that, and they may need to be separated. But the accommodation has to be made, that has to be to them, not to everyone. Not to everyone. I still believe in America that we do the thing about the greater good. I don't think masking up is the definition of greater good. I think if you guys sent flyers home, I'm sorry by the time up, if you sent flyers home and got something from the parents, do you classify your child at risk or not risk? That would be a great start. Okay. Thank you guys for your time, I appreciate it.
Melissa Simmons.
Melissa Simon, 6716 Faxon. They said all the numbers, all the common sense stuff that everybody keeps researching look up. I guess I'm with Rich with the emotional bias. I really didn't prepare a speech, and I just care about this place. I was born here and run a company here, and what I'm seeing that we have to just as a human perspective with people that don't want to wear masks because it's gross, they drop it on the floor, it does have germs, their facts are right. They get shamed, there's the division. The people that want to wear masks are so mad, so I guess I just want to encourage everybody to kind of look at opposing views, because if you don't, that's the death of intellect. If you don't come to the table and say, okay, you feel this way, you feel this way, we lose a part of our humanity. I'm seeing kids with child development and anxiety shooting through the roof right now. That is correct about masks and their identities, and I think in the history of ever, whether it be a monarch, a nation, a country, a city, a community, nothing ever that was terrible or a pandemic or a war got fixed with fear. And that is something us as a community has to really just remember as a whole, everybody.
Nick Bruno.
Hello, Nick Bruno, 7967 Lost Street. I got 2 kids at Stadium. I am a respiratory therapist in a local hospital. I have worked with COVID patients since the beginning of this pandemic. I have helped them as they gasp for air when they first come to our emergency room, as they lay in the ICU too short of breath to even eat, as they are alone and terrified. I have seen many go to the morgue. I could tell you nightmare stories about what else I have seen, but suffice to say that I would not wish it on my worst enemy. We should all do whatever we can to slow the spread of this thing throughout our community, and that includes our children wearing masks at school. I can tell you that my coworkers and I wear masks all day when we're at work. We do not get sick from rebreathing toxins. There are no problems socializing, and it most certainly does not take away my freedom. What the mask does do is keep me from getting the virus. I know that it works because I've been coughed on by people with the coronavirus literally hundreds of times, and I have not gotten it. COVID cases in children are on the rise, but as it's been stated here many times tonight, seems like it doesn't really kill a lot of children. Okay, but one thing is indisputable: kids spread germs. Anyone with kids knows this. If you feel you are not at risk, please consider your family members, neighbors, and friends that are. Please consider your healthcare workers and first responders that are very nearly overwhelmed with the COVID that's already spreading throughout the community. And thank you to the board for making this mask mandate.
Donna Adams.
Good evening. My name is Donna Adams. I live on Melbourne Avenue in Boardman. I do have a daughter who is a senior at the high school this year. I apologize in advance. I'm a little scattered. I did not know about this meeting until about a couple hours ago. First of all, I think we wouldn't be having this conversation about masks 18 months after the pandemic started if they worked. I'm not going to stand here and repeat the numbers that everybody else has already brought up. But I would like to add something about the COVID numbers and the testing. I am somebody who has I am immune compromised. I have been tested for COVID 4 different times, and I have been told, because I am symptomatic, regardless of whether or not the test is back positive, I will be counted as positive. And that is at local testing centers. So these numbers are skewed. I would like to know where the board is getting their, again, I'm not asking a direct question, but I am asking where the board is getting their information from as far as the numbers of COVID cases in this area, because every day the CDC is changing their mind. I'd like to add that Dr. Fauci has not been reliant throughout this whole pandemic. If anybody read his linked emails, he has said from the very beginning, masks do not work. My child has come home stating that she cannot hear the teacher speaking. Her grades dropped dramatically last year. She's preparing to plan for the rest of her life. Colleges are going to be looking at her grades. Her grades last year were not as good as they usually are. Usually my daughter's an honorable student. I have seen an increase in anxiety, and these kids that are wearing these masks. It is creating anxiety. It's creating a breeding ground for other viruses. I'd like to know why the kids have to wear masks throughout the school day, but when they come into the lunchroom and they eat, they're permitted to take them off, which understandably they have to use their mouths. But does COVID die at that point? Does COVID die at sporting events where they don't have to wear masks? And no. I mean, here's the thing. COVID's never going away. COVID's here to stay. And it is an overreach of the board to violate our parental right to make medical decisions for our children. I checked my daughter's birth certificate again before I came here. I'm still a citizen mother. I make her medical decisions, not the board. I would also like to point out that I do respect both sides, to each their own. I have no problem with people wearing masks. If you want to wear a mask, by all means wear a mask. If you want to get vaccinated, by would, like to add that I did find out about the mask mandate at the first football game. And the way I found out about this mask mandate was a video created by the school board. A video in which where everything Boardman is mandating, social distancing and masks, were not practiced in the video by the school board. Do as I say, not as I do. Have a good night. Thank you.
Chris Gardner.
Chris Gardner, Melbourne Avenue, I have 2 children in the school district. Good evening, thank you for having this meeting for us. I appreciate it. Did you know the risk of COVID to healthy children under 18 when you made the mandate? According to the CDC website, from January of last year until now, the risk is 0. 0. I think it's important that I stress 0. No healthy school-age children have died since January of last year. So based on what authority are you diagnosing my children at risk and in need of a medical device? You didn't interview me or get a statement from my doctor stating my children were at risk. Have you interviewed any parents to specifically identify anyone who is at risk and in need of a medical device? If you're going to act in this capacity, you are required to obtain informed consent. According to the FDA, informed consent means that you need to provide the understanding and nature of this medical device, make understand the risks and benefits, and offer reasonable alternatives. I did not receive any papers from you that provided me with the risks, the benefits, or the side effects of a child wearing a mask for 8 hours a day. I was not given any other options, nor did I see anything asking for my permission for you to apply a medical device to my children. All I want to know is, why are you insisting on masking our children when there's no risk to them? According to the American Institute for Economic Research, based on the data from the CDC, children do not readily acquire COVID or spread it to other children or teachers or endanger parents or others at home. This is settled science. So the gentleman saying that they're spreading it, they're not. Please do your research. You're mandating masks for healthy children with almost a 0% chance of dying that are not carriers, based on what? 3 sick teachers that were diagnosed with COVID, I'm assuming, using a PCR test, that the FDA has revoked its emergency use authorization because it cannot diagnose COVID. The American Medical Association Journal did a study that measured carbon dioxide levels in 44 children ages 6 to 17 years old wearing masks. The normal content of carbon dioxide in the air is 400 parts per million, with anything above 2,000 parts per million considered unacceptable. The children in this study averaged 13,120 to 13,910 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the inhaled air while wearing a mask. That is over 6 times higher than the unsafe threshold, all in 3 minutes. 3 minutes of wearing a mask. So I have to ask you, are you willing to take on the liability for the adverse effects on our children's health? There are 26 studies from the National Institute of Health demonstrating that long-term mask wearing can have negative effects and consequences on the wearer. These studies demonstrate breathing difficulties that are created and exacerbated by masking children. The CDC reported in February that masking impedes breathing, which can trigger a variety of other problems, including acute anxiety attacks. So I ask again, why are you mandating masks for healthy children when the masks are harmful and the virus is not affecting the children?
There is no good reason or scientific evidence to mandate healthy children wear a mask ever. I could go on and on with bacteria, pathogens, and fungus that have been found on masks, but the bottom line is masking children with a zero risk of transmission and illness of COVID is not only unnecessary, illogical, irrational, and child abuse. In closing, I ask, would you please leave the medical decisions to the parents and their doctors and make masks optional? Thank you.
Kelly Zemko.
Hi, my name's Kelly Zemko, and I live on Hunters Cove in Boardman. Sorry I didn't write that on there. So forgive me, I didn't really write a formal thing. I have a few notes here that I'd like to make. I want to start out by saying I'm not one of those people that are going to sit here and say that I don't believe COVID is real. When Brandon was talking, I got a little choked up myself. My mom died of COVID in March of last year. I couldn't even go to her funeral. She died in a nursing home alone, and I know it's real. My husband's a fire medic. He transported COVID positive patients just about every shift for about 8 months straight. He works 92 to 106 hours a week. I work on the Gulf Coast. I get on a plane every other week, and until the federal mandate, I never wore a mask. In the last 2 years, neither of us have been sick, ever, not once. So I know for me and my family, I have to make a choice about what I think our risk is. And I know the risk is real. My husband, like I said, what he does for a living, how it affected my family personally. But all summer long, my kids have been in their youth group, they've been in sports, they've been doing different activities, birthday parties. Nobody's been sick. And so I'm not going to sit up here and argue about whether or not masks work or not. I hear from you guys a responsibility to protect in-person learning. And I don't think any of us here would say that we prefer distance learning. I think we all agree. I didn't catch the principals last week, but I totally agree with her. You guys have a responsibility to protect in-person learning because we all know that's the best thing for our kids. So instead of arguing about masks or whether they work, let's talk about that. Adults, including all of your staff, have had among the first access to vaccines. They've been free, totally available for about 8 months. So I don't understand why it's my children's burden to protect quarantining rules to keep your staff levels in place. If you want to mandate masks for the adults that work for you that are on your payroll, that's a lot different than making my third grader cover his face when he's already struggling. And Mr. Saxton, you and I spoke at length, and I have to tell you, I'm so grateful. I told you that, but I'll say it again, high five. Thank you for taking me seriously enough to try to give me some options and things like that. But as of this morning, all 4 of my kids are Austintown Falcons, because the Austintown schools believe that this is a parental choice. I will also tell you, two statistics that you guys haven't heard of yet, but I'll throw these out there. Over 80% of the kids that died from COVID caught COVID in the hospital. They were hospitalized for something else. Did you know that? Also, because my husband's a firefighter, I almost brought a fire extinguisher to sit here, and the reason being, more kids died of burns than COVID, but nobody carries fire extinguishers, right? That sounds absurd, because it is. Again, I'm not going to bash anybody, but if the numbers of who's represented so far paint a pretty clear picture of what our community looks like when it comes to the opinion of forcing something on our children, it seems to me there's a larger parent population opposing this than supporting it. So my southern daddy would say, you don't change 100% of the rules for a small majority of the people. He would say, that's like shooting a house fire with a shotgun, right? Yeah, you killed the bug, but you got a big old hole in the wall. And let's talk about what that hole in the wall looks like. Let's talk about the way that my son struggled so bad. You want to talk about anxiety. You want to talk about I don't even want to go with some of the things that my little guy said, but it really broke my heart. He had a hard time. We were new to the district. He made no friends. Not one kid came to his birthday party. And I gotta say, he didn't have that problem in our old school district. And I'm not sure that it didn't have to do with the fact that he wasn't connecting with people. I don't know. The last thing that I'll say, as a parent, I get to choose whether or not I want my kid to quarantine, and I make that choice whenever I send them to school. I know you guys are not restricted, but you're subject to certain rules that you don't have any control over, whether you agree with them or not. If the rule is an unmatched child has to quarantine, then you guys have to enforce that, and I get that. But it's my option as a parent to then say, okay, listen, I can't homeschool you, you have to wear a mask. If I'm in a position to accommodate homeschool and I'm willing to take that risk on, then that's my choice. And I feel really passionately about this, and I think a lot of us here do. So, again, I'm not political. I don't even have a Facebook page. I try to see things from both sides. And so when everybody was really upset about, am I done? Okay, I will just say,
10 more seconds.
okay, I was just gonna say, as far as people that do want to mandate masks, please wear them. If it makes you feel safer, please do. I'm glad that we're at least able to have this dialogue, and I hope we can come up with a solution. Thanks, you guys, for your time.
Roland Gazni. I'm gonna pass, I'll let someone else go, they just touched on it. Thank you. Joy Horton.
Hi, thank you for this meeting again. Joy Horton, lifelong resident of Boardman, graduate myself. I have 6 children, 3 of whom attend Boardman. I understand the fear. With 6 children, when something goes through our household, it goes through our household, and it takes forever. We've had months at a time where it was gone through and everything. I understand. Oh, sorry, I didn't say my address, Ron Lane. I understand the fear. I understand the Jones thing. I was very encouraged to find out that vitamin C, D, and zinc, and elderberry, when you take them with the first sign of sickness, are much more effective than the mask, anything I've ever even heard of. And I have tested this through my family back and forth. And we've done very, very well with it. Everybody I know who does it has the same results. Everybody else took what I was going to say, so I'll keep this short. But I would like to say that for those of you who are just absolutely freaked out by less than 1% a death rate for COVID, I would like you to leave your keys in the contraption over there, known as the trash can, because the odds of dying in a car crash are insane. So we don't need to be driving if that's, we're afraid of a 1% chance of death. Have a good night.
Chris Vandergrift Cromwell.
Hi, my name is Chris Vandergrift Cromwell. I am a resident of Boardman. I'm a parent of a senior at Boardman High School. I live at 86 MacArthur Drive. My daughter asked me to speak to you because she was terrified to come in. Her anxiety is through the roof. She can't breathe. She feels like she's caged. She can't hear her teachers because they are mumbled when they speak. We both had COVID last year. We stayed home. We got tested. We didn't go out in public. We did responsible things. I don't think that I should tell everyone what to do with their body and how to medically treat themselves. I feel that it is my right as a parent to dictate what happens to my child and my child's health is not up to the board. It is not up to the school. It is not up to the state. It is for my husband and I to decide what's right for our child. We don't believe in masks. We believe they're hindering. If it's something you choose to do and it's right for you, then you should absolutely do it. And if that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. But it's not right for my daughter, and it's making things worse for her. She did not do well at home online. She ended up in therapy on anti-anxiety medication. This is not right. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'd like to say that was our last speaker. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for taking the time, whether you were here as an audience member or took time to speak. We very much appreciate all the information you have given us. We as the board members, administration team, have a lot to digest. So I just want to let you know the next time this issue will come up, board discussion is going to be at our September 27th board meeting. Okay? We're going to continue on with our meeting, but we can take a 5-minute break if anyone would like to excuse yourself. Is that perfectly okay to do that? If you want to stay, you can do that too. But we do have some items that we have to take some votes on.
Wait, I'm sorry, I just have one question. Did you say you're not going to make a decision before the 27th?
Correct.
Not at all?
No.
That's what the school board does. Why didn't we just do it then? I mean, what's the point of the meeting? Why don't we just do it at the end of September? Great job, guys. Great job. For the weather turn.
Yeah.
I'm